This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy to see if you could save when you bundle your home and auto policies. Try it at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
Welcome to the No Guilt Mom podcast. I'm your host, Joanne Crone, and we are talking about something that should be very familiar to you on this podcast, guilt. Why do you feel guilty all the time? And how that might lead to more burnout. Many moms feel exhausted, and then you probably also feel guilty for feeling exhausted. Like life may look fine on the outside, but there's this constant sense of pressure and self-criticism just building underneath. And this guilt comes from all directions, from your work, from your parenting, from resting, from even enjoying yourself. And I want to tell you that this is not a motivation problem or a time management failure. Burnout often isn't about doing too much. It's about carrying those expectations that never turn off. And today we're going to explore why you as a mom feel guilty, even when you're doing enough, how guilt quietly fuels that burnout and that anxiety, and how understanding the guilt equation helps you reclaim your energy and your agency. And if you've ever wondered why you can't sit down and rest and it doesn't feel restful, or why enjoyment usually comes with strings attached for you, this conversation is going to put language to that experience. And this isn't about lowering expectations, nor is it about blaming yourself. It's about understanding what's actually driving your guilt. And when you understand that, then it's possible to feel actual relief. And to do that today, we are joined by Dr. Jennifer Reid. Dr. Reid is a psychiatrist, educator, and author who helps women understand the mental and emotional weight they've been carrying for years, especially guilt. Through her work as a psychiatrist, she focuses on women's mental health with particular attention to the constant guilt and anxiety so many moms experience, even when they're doing everything quote unquote right. She's also the creator and host of A Mind of Her Own, a podcast, and Substack, where she explores how women can make decisions from agency and joy instead of pressure and self-blame. Her work challenges the idea that guilt is a necessary part of being a good mom and offers a more sustainable and humane way forward. And Guilt-Free: Reclaiming Your Life from Unreasonable Expectations is her latest book. And with that, let's get on with the show. Welcome to the podcast, Jennifer. I'm so happy to have you here and talk about guilt, which is one of my favorite topics.
Thank you, Joanne. I'm so happy to be here and to share and talk and hear your insights about this subject as well.
Yeah, I love talking about guilt. And so often, I think that this should be called the no shame mom versus the no guilt mom, because as you talk about too in your book, guilt isn't always a bad thing. It's really an adaptive emotion. Can you go more into that about the benefits of guilt?
Yeah, that was something that was really interesting to me when I was doing research for the book, because when we think of guilt, I think often as a really negative thing. But as it turns out, there's a reason that it's been part of our species' experience for eons. And that's because there are actually aspects of it that help us connect and collaborate with others. Reason being that if something has happened to someone that we care about, they're going to feel badly, and we're probably going to feel through empathy badly as well and say, oh my gosh, this bad thing happened. If we believe we're at fault, we may want to apologize, try and make a repair, show them that we care, and then we recognize they've been upset and we want to help. And that you can see how that can bring us together. Mm-hmm. There's another interesting adaptive aspect of guilt, very much in moderation though, is that it can help us if we feel sort of powerless in a dynamic to influence someone else's choices. By using some guilt, we can use that to sort of influence what they're going to do. Maybe they're going to help us or take care of us. The trouble is that guilt, that manipulative guilt can really get to be too much very quickly.
That is interesting, the idea of the manipulative guilt, because obviously, we've had it used on ourselves as moms. And when you say that, I immediately think of my kids. When they try to get something out of me, the guilt usually comes out. And I think that's true for so many moms.
I think it is. I think that it may be coming from our own parents. It may be coming from our children, really from maybe a work environment or our friends, just this constant sense of people trying to get us to give more of ourselves, to care for them, to do things to help out. And certainly those are good impulses that we want to do those things. But I think when it feels like we're being manipulated, that feels awful. And in fact, that was a question I heard from so many women as I was talking about writing the book. Like, are you going to write about manipulation? Are you going to write about, this type of guilt or that type of guilt? And it seemed to be a really significant issue for so many women, that sense that someone's trying to control me with guilt. And unfortunately, it can work, very well.
Right. And thinking that like it is to equal the power dynamic, it gives such an interesting perspective too when you see that guilt being used against yourself, especially among your
Mhm.
kids. Something I hear from a lot of moms is that even though other people aren't using that manipulative guilt so much on them, like if, for instance, they are doing all this stuff around the house and they want to rest, and their husband's like, yes, rest. And everybody's like, yes, rest. They feel guilty for resting. In your experience, like, why do moms feel guilty all the time, even though they may not experience this like outside sense from others of having to do more?
Yeah. Well, I think recognizing that we are socialized as young girls up through being women to carry certain expectations for ourselves. So we're not
Mm,
just creating this out of the blue individually. That we are part
yeah.
of this sort of cultural moment that expects girls and then women to be constantly caretaking for others, being accountable for their emotional experiences, making sure everyone has what they need. And so I
Mhm.
think anytime that we actually take care of ourselves, that becomes this feeling of selfishness, which is so difficult to manage because we're saying, if I'm caring for me through rest, through doing something pleasurable, through just doing something fun or silly,
Right.
that means I'm taking time away from other people that I'm supposed to be caring for all the time. And so it feels like I'm doing something wrong, and yet that means that we never get to take care of ourselves if that is where the guilt is suggesting we go, right? Don't rest, don't do anything that's just for you
Mhm.
because you're like neglecting, some of these ways we talk to ourselves, neglecting our loved ones.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I have felt that way time and time again that I'm like neglecting people if I sit down and rest. And I also think it was modeled for me by my mom, who is the same
Hmm.
way. She would not sit down and rest. I really like it as she's gotten older and like comes to visit my house. And I'm like, Mom, sit down on the couch. Let me make you a margarita. Here you go. And kind of like
Yes.
redoing that dynamic. Because
Yeah.
how do we like start recognizing that these are expectations in our like minds that we have been conditioned versus like absolute truths that we have to form and we have to follow?
Well, that's the fun. I mean, sitting across from people in psychotherapy is that I get to hear these patterns, these same expectations keep surfacing in our conversations. And so I get to see, like, of course, this isn't just one person and it's not just me. It's helpful for me to see that as well. And that's where I really try to figure out what are these key areas of expectations that many women face. Sort of came up with four main categories. And I think just knowing what the categories are, it helps us say, did any of these apply right now?
Yeah.
And those are this expectation of constant caretaking, of hyper accountability for other people's emotions and thoughts, which we can't control.
Oh,
It's the idea
yeah.
that we need to be perfect in every aspect of our lives in order to be worthwhile and lovable. And lastly, that we can somehow balance it all, have it all in a really effortlessly calm and organized way, which again, these expectations are just impossible to reach.
They're absolutely impossible. And hear you say that constant accountability for everybody's emotions and thoughts. That is something that I see through my work as like a coach to women and to moms that a lot of moms get really hung up on. There is this saying that drives me completely mad is that happy kids mean a good mom. And I'm like,
Oof.
no, that's not true.
Yeah.
Because your kids are going to go through like this wide range of emotions. And we get caught in being in that people pleasing mode. Like just this morning, my son really wants me to give him permission to skip school tomorrow because there's a pep rally and he's like, we're not going to do any learning, Mom. Like, you should just let me skip. And I'm here going, but being able to get through those situations where you feel uncomfortable and you don't want to be there and like learning to make the most of it, that's an important social skill. And he like gets up and kind of like, well, no. And he like leaves the room and immediately my heart drops because as you said,
Yeah.
I kind of feel this hyper accountability for my kids' emotions and feelings. And I think a lot of moms do as well.
I think where it really comes up, and I wrote about a lot, is disappointment. Like in that situation, right? That your son's feeling disappointed because he very much would like to skip school tomorrow.
Yes.
And you're saying, sorry, bud. And I think that there is this fear we have, that we have this belief system that if I'm supposed to control my kids' emotions and they're feeling disappointed, especially if it's some decision I've made, then that's
Yes.
somehow wrong and damaging. And not only that, I need to fix it right away.
Yeah. Oh, the fix it thing.
Right? If they feel disappointment for more than a minute, somehow there's some catastrophic outcome. Well, of course not. Disappointment signal, it's an emotional signal like any other. It's temporary. It's not dangerous. But we can teach them that it is by saying, for example, oh my God, I know you have to go to school tomorrow. I'm so sorry, but how about after school we go and we buy you something really cool, or we go out for dinner, or whatever it might be. Like we try to sort of fix it in these ways. And I think it says a number of things. Most importantly, though, is I don't want you to ever feel disappointment because it's bad for you in some way.
And that is a tricky message that you're giving to kids because I feel like it's just a cycle that feeds itself because we as moms are trying not to make our kids be disappointed. In fact, they don't experience it. They don't know how to overcome it. And it's so hard, but yet it's so automatic in us to immediately do those things and to immediately fix the situation. So coming up next, we are going to dig into that, how to make it less automatic and how like all of this guilt may actually be fueling burnout. So right after this, we'll be back.
Okay, real talk. I have approximately 47,000 photos on my phone. I wish I was joking. And every year I tell myself, this is the year I'm going to do something with all of these memories. And then I don't. Because who has time to sit there arranging photos into layouts for hours? Well, I finally did it. And I need to tell you about Journey Print because it was honestly so much easier than I expected. Here is what blew my mind. Their AI auto arranges your photos into this beautiful book in seconds. You upload your pictures from your phone and their smart algorithm organizes everything by date and location. It even adds maps. So my book isn't just random photos. It's actually the story of our year. I made this year in review book and flipping through it with my kids, seeing our trip to Paris last year, the first day of school where my daughter's a senior, and even just silly everyday moments, it hit me how fast this year went. And now we have this gorgeous, gorgeous book to hold on to because the quality is premium, like really nice satin paper. And they plant a tree for every order, which I love. Creating it took me maybe 15 minutes. That's it. No joke. Go to journeyapp.com/podcast/NGM and use code no guilt to get 30% off your next purchase. That's Journey spelled JOURNIAPP.com/podcast/NGM and use code no guilt at checkout. I used to think my kids' meltdowns were just about being tired or overstimulated, but here's what I didn't know. 50% of kids suffer from hidden hunger. Even if they're eating, they might not be getting the nutrients their brains actually need to regulate emotions and focus. And listen, if you've got a picky eater who lives on chicken nuggets, I mean, haven't we all had that experience? You're probably dealing with big emotions and meltdowns that feel never ending. That's why I'm obsessed with First Day Daily multivitamins. They're designed specifically to fill those nutrient gaps, and they work for the whole family. I take the women's multivitamin, and honestly, they're so tasty, which really, really matters to me because if a vitamin doesn't taste good, I forget to take it. But First Day, I actually look forward to it. What I also love is how transparent they are. No added sugar, No artificial dyes or crushed bones. Yes, that's a thing. Just 9 essential vitamins and a blend of 12 organic fruits and veggies. It's like sneaking in 1.5 cups of spinach and 5 cups of broccoli into 2 gummies. Plus, they're age specific because a toddler's needs aren't the same as a teen's or yours. For a limited time, our listeners get up to 57% off and a free gift with code NGM at firstday.com. That's up to 57% off with code NGM at firstday.com. And please tell them No Guilt Mom sent you. When I was an elementary school teacher, I saw firsthand how beautifully different every kid is. Some thrived working independently, others lit up during in-depth projects, and others excelled in completely different ways. And the best part, when kids get to learn in the way that works for them, amazing things happen. And that's exactly why so many families are turning to K-12 powered schools. These are tuition-free, online accredited public schools for kindergarten through 12th grade. And if the traditional classroom isn't a perfect fit for your child, K-12 can help them thrive. K-12 knows that every student learns differently, whether your child needs more flexibility or an education that's more personalized. K-12 will give them the support they need. Students learn at their own pace with curriculum tailored to meet their goals, needs, and interests, all taught by state-certified teachers who are trained in online education with hands-on, innovative technology that makes learning interactive. K-12 has more than 25 years experience helping students gain the skills they truly need to thrive in the future, and it could be perfect for your child too. Join the more than 3 million families who have been served by K-12 and empower your student to reach their full potential now. You can make the switch at any time. Go to k12.com/NGM today to learn more. That's the letter K, the number 12.com/NGM. K12.com/NGM.
So, a lot of moms are experiencing this burnout of trying to do everything for everyone and be everywhere and manage everyone's emotions. And they feel burnt out even though they've already tried to simplify everything. And guilt could be like the missing piece. You talk about guilt not just as a feeling, but as a driver of that behavior. So, how does that connection lead to moms becoming burnt out?
Because feeling guilty, it feels pretty awful.
Yeah,
It doesn't feel good,
No.
right? It's human and it's normal, but it doesn't feel good. And so when we feel that way, we might make decisions based on how can I alleviate this guilt as quickly as possible or as thoroughly as possible. But that really allows guilt to be in the driver's seat. And so guilt, for example, maybe we couldn't go visit our parents for the weekend. And we feel really guilty about that, maybe influenced by how they respond, of course. But we feel guilty and we say, but I'll come the following weekend, even though we actually have something else scheduled or we just can't make it or things are really stressful. We have to let someone else down. So we let guilt make that decision. And I think when you're letting guilt make your decisions, you're not doing what you need or even want to do. You're doing what you think you should. And I think when you're living in that sort of place of should, you can get to burnout pretty quickly because, again, you're not actually caring for yourself. It may be that you can't go that weekend because you actually just need to stay home and sleep for 12 hours one night because you're exhausted, right? So I think it's really being careful that guilt is not making our decisions, that we're making them based on what we want or need, really having agency in our own lives, because there's no amount of simplification or organization that's going to allow us to be happy when guilt is making our decisions.
Oh, right. And something you talk about in your book is the guilt equation. Can you explain that and how it helps moms feel like less constantly depleted by understanding it?
Yeah. Coming up with the equation was important to me because I wanted to find some way that we could examine our guilt in all these different contexts, particularly in parenting, but in any other roles that we hold as daughters of aging parents, as spouses, as friends. And the guilt equation, when I really looked at what was creating this guilt for us, it came down to 2 key variables. One, we've already talked about, which is our expectations. What are our expectations in a particular situation? And very carefully reminding everyone, this is not what we're coming up with ourselves. Again, this is where this is the water we're
Right.
swimming in. So our expectations in a particular role, as a mother whose son is asking if he can skip school the next day, for example, right?
Mhm.
Subtracting from that, what we see ourselves providing or how we see ourselves showing up, our perceived reality as women. So what are we noticing that we're already doing? What are the things we are, are we noticing what we're doing well, how we're showing up for our kids and our family, the ways we're contributing to our community already? Or are we just dismissing all of those and saying, well, I need to be doing more?
Dismissing. Yes.
Yeah.
I think.
Same.
Yes.
Same. So it's that difference. And so if you look at it and you think, where are these expectations coming from? And do I want to continue to let them drive things? And what am I maybe overlooking of the things that I've actually done in this role to even today, right? That we dismiss those things so quickly.
It is funny how we dismiss those things so quickly. Like most women that I know are the most like successful, achievement driven people. And yet they will be the first to be like, oh, I'm really not that impressive, or I haven't really done that much. I mean, I'm one of those women, and I've written 3 books. I have like a podcast, and I'm like, I'm not anybody. Like it's amazing how those expectations and like it's almost like a checklist of such like I need this, this, and this to actually feel successful. But then when you hit those check marks, you immediately like raise the bar and you're like, oh, but I don't have this yet. How do we get over that kind of thinking? Like, what is like one thing we can do?
Well, one area that I wanted to talk about that I think is so important, is the area of comparisons. Because I think we live in an environment where they are everywhere. But importantly, we actually choose who we're comparing ourselves to.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like the data suggests we actually compare ourselves more when we're feeling insecure, when we're feeling down on ourselves.
Oh, interesting.
So it can be this perfect storm, right? I'm feeling awful.
Yeah.
I'm going to find someone to compare myself to. But who do we find to compare ourselves to?
The people who are most like out there and like visible and
fabulous.
Yeah, fabulous. Yes.
Right. We're not finding maybe another mom who's having a tough day and is just like chilling out and like struggling. Like we find those that we think are this ideal version of what we'd want to be, as if that somehow motivates us to improve. But what does it actually usually do? Is that it makes us feel even worse. It takes away even more of our agency and then adds more guilt. And here we are back again saying, oh, but I'm never going to be like her. Or why am I not doing what I'm supposed to be doing? And then we try to do more, which doesn't actually get us any further away from that guilt.
Yeah, you're right. And this is like the first I've heard about comparisons, about you're only comparing yourself when you feel down yourself. And I think that is such a really important insight, because that leads me to believe that I could have this little like mental, almost not a checklist, but like a mental break, being like, whoa, I'm not feeling so great about myself. How can I make myself feel better? That's not comparing to other people. What are some things that you've seen work for others and work for yourself to make yourself feel better during that time?
Yeah, I think like you're saying, recognize that you choose who you're comparing yourself to, noticing that it might be happening in a moment where you actually need something a little bit different. When I think about like social media or anybody that's sort of out there that we don't really know who they are or much about them, I always try to insert the word like projecting. So instead of saying she has a perfect body, I'm going to say she's projecting an image of the perfect body. Now, I don't know if that's photoshopped, if that's, if she's just really struggling with something in her own life. Like, I don't know anything about her except what she's projecting. And so I try to insert that in there so that it just helps me see that this is just a 2-dimensional image. There's an illusion here, and it may or may not represent truth. She may have the perfect body, I guess. I don't know. But I think that's a really important, adding a little bit of objectivity in that situation. And the other thing, I mean, certainly realizing the positive things that we've done, one way that we do that is to compare ourselves to an earlier version of us.
Okay. I do that sometimes.
Because do you do that? Not because like what was my body like 20 years ago?
Don't do that. Don't compare yourself to 20-year-old you. No.
Right. Like, how have I grown? What have I done that I'm really proud of? What are the relationships that I've nurtured? What are the things that younger me might say, good work? and
Yeah.
really think about that, because I think that's the person, if we have to compare ourselves to someone, it might be an earlier version who really had these dreams and goals that maybe in a lot of ways we've reached. Maybe earlier you was like 3 books. This is unbelievable. And wouldn't that be wonderful to take some time and pay attention to that?
Yeah. I'm curious if you're up for like doing this in real time, what are some things that you would tell your 20-year-old self about yourself?
I would say I am so excited that you have found someone who really loves you and listens to you and cares for you in your partner. Like, your husband is a wonderful person and you've really nurtured that relationship, even though it was really hard sometimes.
Mm.
And I can't believe you carried 2 babies for that many months, just feeling sick all day long, every day, right? And that you got through these different school programs and that you helped this many people in a practice. Like, when you really start to think about it, you can come
Mhm.
up with so many because, like you said, successful, ambitious, strong women are everywhere and they're saying, it's not enough. I'm not enough. And there
Yeah.
are so many reasons to think differently.
Yeah, comparing yourself to that older version of you, like just as you were talking, I was listening. This is something we're working on in the No Guilt Mom Inner Circle, is like listening to other people, as most of us tend to be moms who have slight tendencies towards, lots of racing thoughts and everything. But it also reminded me of stuff like I have overcome in my life instead of just the plain like successes, like, oh, wrote a book. Well, what did you do to overcome it? I sat down every morning at my computer against all of the thoughts in my head that I was a horrible writer. And I put those thoughts onto paper and I got through that and published it to allow other people to read my work, which was also a big hang up because I think like we have all these hangups that stop us from growing forward. And those are great things to look at to see what has been overcome. I want to shift the conversation a little bit to rest because I know that is such a big thing for moms. Like, we cannot rest because of the guilt that really consumes us. What have you seen in helping moms to actually sit down and rest when they're consumed with everything else they should be doing?
Yeah, I think that thinking about self compassion can be really helpful in this situation. And that's different than just sort of boosting your self esteem, saying, what are the
Mm,
good things about me? Self compassion really is looking at yourself sort of clearly with open eyes, saying, where am I at right now? But in a kind way, in a way that sees me as part of this world I live in and really is mindful of where I am in this moment. And I think it's important to practice self compassion when we have thoughts and they're just thoughts that say, you shouldn't rest, you don't
mm,
deserve this, right? That those are thoughts that are really critical and the opposite of compassionate. How can we start to shift those? And one of the strategies I love from self compassion, it sounds really simple, but it works well. I use it all the time, is I imagine, what would I say to a friend in that situation? So, what
mhm.
would you say to a dear friend of yours who's also a mom, who never lets herself sit down and take a rest, or who never lets herself schedule something fun, or maybe just kind of mindless? Like, I did a paint
Mm.
by numbers not that long ago, and I was like, there is no purpose to this, and it is a blast. You
Yeah.
know, what would you say to that friend? Because you find that you're going there from, I should never rest, I'm lazy, I'm falling behind, to, wow, you've been working so hard and like your kids are doing really well. You are really an amazing person. You deserve to take some time for yourself. And I think just
Right.
giving yourself again that objectivity, a little bit of it, helps us to see ourselves as we would see someone we really care about.
Oh, I love that strategy from self compassion. I
Mm.
use that too, thinking how I would talk to a friend.
Yeah.
The other strategy I use a lot from it is to acknowledge that I'm hurting in that moment.
Mm.
Because so often, like if you're sitting down to rest and you have all these thoughts being like, I can't rest, I have to do all these things, you're hurting. You're in
Mm.
emotional pain because you're here conflicted by you're not doing the right thing. And
Mhm.
just noticing that pain for me, I'm like, oh, I am in pain. Oh, okay. I need to comfort myself and I deserve this rest to comfort myself. It's a great practice.
It's so powerful. I mean, I think even when like moms get sick, for example, there's this sense,
Hmm.
this expectation that we should just be a robot and we should just fix the dial a little bit and get right back to it, especially if someone else in our family is ill and we have to care for them.
Right.
being able to care for ourselves there is just so, so important. I mean, that's a clear example of without rest, without hydration, without those things to help me heal, I'm not going to feel better. And then I can't be the best version of myself in my life for others, but also for me as I'm trying to move forward.
Right. And that whole thing about being sick, I think it also damages our relationships when we're not self-compassionate to ourselves. Because, for instance, I see this pattern happening a lot where mom is sick, mom keeps working, dad gets sick, dad rests, mom then says dad has man flu. And there's like that kind of like back and forth between like in the relationship and creating this conflict that wouldn't have existed if mom had just given herself permission to rest as well. So it's so interesting, the dynamic that guilt has on us.
That is so common. And then, right, you feel resentful because you're like, when I was
Right.
feeling terrible, I pushed through. And I think the question is, why did you believe you had to do that? And what would happen
Exactly.
if you hadn't done that? And what would it mean to say, I have to step back from this responsibility or I need help? And I think, again, we're socialized to think that that means we're not a good mom, that we're not strong and resilient and all these things we're supposed to be, as opposed
Right.
to showing strength by saying, I need help and support.
Oh, showing strength by saying, I need help and support. I mean,
Yeah.
there is a thought replacement that would be
Yeah.
great in this. So we've talked a little bit about how guilt can really lead into that burnout because it's a driver of behavior. Coming up next, we're going to have some more strategies for you all on how you can stop making this guilt automatic and start being able to listen to yourself and give yourself what you need. Coming up next.
This podcast is supported by MIDI Health. Are you in midlife, feeling dismissed, unheard, or just plain tired of the old healthcare system? You're not alone. In fact, even today, 75% of women seeking care for menopause and perimenopause issues are left entirely untreated. But it's time for a change. It's time for MIDI. MIDI's not just a healthcare provider. It's a women's telehealth clinic founded and supported by world-class leaders in women's health. Their clinicians provide one-on-one, face-to-face consultations where they truly listen to your unique needs. They offer a full range of holistic, data-driven solutions that isn't one-size-fits-all care. This is care uniquely tailored for you. At MIDI, you will find that their mission is clear: to help all women thrive in midlife, giving them access to the healthcare they deserve. Because they believe midlife isn't the middle at all. It is the beginning of your second act. Ready to feel your best and write your second act script? Visit joinmidi.com today to book your personalized, insurance-covered virtual visit. That's joinmidi.com. MIDI, the care women deserve.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
So now we're going to get very tactical in the conversation. How do we actually start using our guilt in a way that makes us less controlled of that guilt? So once a mom understands this guilt equation, once a mom understands that expectations are really driving the show, what changes about how she makes her decisions, Jennifer?
Yeah, so I think that was so important that there was some way to move forward, because understanding is important, having the language for what's happening is important, but also what are some different tools? And what I wanted to really teach is how can we examine our own thoughts and feelings and behaviors, because we're all unique, right? You're not going to give someone else your measurements if they're out going out and shopping for their own dress. Like, you have to be able to figure out your own. And so I talk about something called SPEAK, which is just my shorthand for really the process of psychotherapy or even coaching sessions. That S stands for showing up, which let's not, underestimate how important that is. That is saying, I deserve taking time to think about this, whether it's reading a book or listening to a podcast, what have you. Then I'm paying attention to my own thoughts and feelings, not what someone else tells me I should be feeling or thinking.
That's
I'm
a hard
examining
thing.
those.
Yeah.
It is a hard thing. Yeah.
When you're so used to basing your actions on what you think other people are thinking, actually noticing your actions and then separating them from those expectations that have always been put on you, it could be a really long process.
It can be a long process. And I think the more that you catch it in yourself, recognize what contexts particularly trigger guilt. Some people, it's when they're interacting with family, some people with their kids, some people in a work environment. Where are you finding that showing up? Are there certain individuals where that is happening more often? It just gives us so much information, like kind of a user manual for ourselves. Like, okay, this is where I should expect guilt to be coming up. So I can really try and use the equation and then take action. So thinking about those two variables of the equation, how can we examine and potentially shift our expectations? I'll give you an example, which is my mother stayed at home with us and I'm, working as a psychiatrist and author. If my expectations were static in a place of this is what a good mom does. She stays home. She doesn't work outside the house. She's always available for us in this way. And I said, that's the only way to be a good mom. I would really feel like I was getting it wrong a lot because my kids
I could
have
see
been
how
in
that-
daycare, right? They have been nannies or au pairs or what have you. And so how do I take the expectations, the pieces that really are valuable and I want to hang on to, and try and shift away from those that are really too limiting or don't fit what I want to have in my own life, my own values, right? So how do we shift those expectations is really powerful.
You're right, because if it's something that you've always seen growing up, it could be hard to examine those expectations into like there might be other different ways of doing things that are just as valid and just as good. And in your SPEAK acronym, the showing up, the paying attention, examining that evidence, and taking action. What's the K? What do they do with the K?
The K is the most important, and that is just to keep going. It's just to do this every day, recognize it. It's not that having written a book about guilt, I never feel guilty.
Yeah.
I have guilty thoughts all the time, right? All the time.
I'm over here at No Guilt Mom being like, I am not free from guilt. It is a practice. Yeah.
It is a practice. It's a practice like anything, like, getting fit or eating healthy or building relationships. Like you have to do it regularly. Not that I want this to seem onerous, but I want it to seem like that this is just a part of your day, part of your life. And when guilt comes in and when the world is telling you should feel guilty in a particular situation, you get to actually take that information in and figure out whether or not it's true and accurate for you. Because I think that's really important.
And that's also a very difficult thing. And I see that something that helps with kind of evaluating that expectations is to be around other moms who are in the same area as you, who aren't the moms who are volunteering for every class activity or like juggling work in the PTA. They're not those moms. They're the moms who are actually real and vulnerable and sharing their emotions. That could be really hard to find that kind of community. I've seen a lot of moms struggle in that area, actually normalizing what they're doing on a daily basis versus what they think they should be doing because, all those mom groups exist of this shame and doing more, and it just perpetuates from within.
Well, that's why it's so important to have language for this. And I think the best thing I can imagine with the book is that women would read that and find that common ground and that common language and recognize that me admitting I'm having these thoughts or this guilt is not saying I'm a bad mom or I'm not working hard enough. It's saying, yes, I'm living in this time and place. That really is all it says. And so how do we help each other as opposed to saying, I don't want to talk about this because then others will judge me in a negative light. So I really hope that this just allows women to say, me too. Absolutely. I feel that way.
Yeah. And your book has so many instances of just that like realization being like, oh, I do think that. So it is just a really healing process reading your book and a really validating process as well.
Oh, that is like the best thing I could possibly hear. Thank you for saying that. That is wonderful. And hopefully what many women will feel, because gosh, we've been getting a lot of the opposite.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And right in this time and age, like with the political climate as it is with everything, we need more women who feel less constrained by the guilt and by the societal expectations and more willing to stand up for what they believe in. And I think your book really, really helps drive that home about that. Really recognize your guilt so it doesn't hold you back.
I love that. Thank you for saying that, Jen. That's absolutely what I hope it does.
Yes. Well, I like to end every podcast on a really high, like, what are you looking forward to note? So what is something that you're looking forward to in your life right now?
Oh my gosh. Okay. What am I looking forward to? My sons are both in musicals and they're doing kind of a theater expo this weekend where they give a little sample of the songs
That's
from the
fun.
future musical. And I get to see groups of other schools come in with their own program. So it's just like a theater mom, like heaven all day on Saturday.
Yeah. What musicals are they in?
One is in All Shook Up, so a lot of the Elvis music. And then the other one is in Diary of a Wimpy Kid, which I didn't know was a musical, but it's super cute.
Super cute.
Super funny. So I'm really looking forward to just seeing them up there, having a great time.
Oh, that sounds like a really fun weekend. I'm a theater kid myself. I'm still in theater. And so like anything
Lovely.
that like is involved in that, I just absolutely love. Theater's like the best environment for no guilt because like you could just go in and be yourself and be wacky and zany and silly and no one judges you. At least they shouldn't.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. It's a really welcoming, warm, inclusive environment. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, hearing this episode, I hope that it gave you the language to recognize your own guilt, especially using Dr. Jennifer Reid's guilt equation, and really look at how guilt's affecting your life right now and how you want to show up and what your own feelings are. I think that's the hardest thing. And until next time, remember, the best mom is a happy mom. Take care of you, and I'll talk with you later.
If you'd like to support the show further, you can share episodes with your loved ones, leave a positive review, or follow us on social media at No Guilt Mom. You could also show your love by visiting our amazing podcast sponsors. We have a link in the show notes.